Ascent. Let's go.
Welcome to the Ascent. Hosted today by Rich
and Scott.
Really excited to be here. And I think given this is our first episode, we wanted to have a little bit of a conversation about maybe what do we mean by the Ascent? Who are we as Mountain Branch? How does that then fit into the context of the conversation we're looking to have today?
Yeah, I think it's a great place to start. And honestly, when you're doing this for the first time, it's a little cringe. So I appreciate all of you bearing with us. But yeah, this came about really from our journey together through Mountain Branch, which is our consulting company that Rich and I launched. We could tell a little backstory on that. But then we wanted to add a bit of experience to that through what we're calling the Ascent, which will be a podcast we do probably on a monthly basis. We'll determine the frequency, but it's all about that climb, that growth, the next level.
Ascent is different than being at the peak, and it's different than being at the bottom. So tell me more. What does that journey look like?
Yeah, and I think, first of all, the peak, and you see this a lot on LinkedIn. You see people posting around the precipice of the next great achievement.
Totally.
And I think a lot of what is missing is that climb and what it takes to actually get to those peaks and precipices. And I think fundamentally, that objective, that true peak of a mountain, from a company standpoint, you never really achieve it. Like, it's constant growth. It's constantly getting to the next thing.
Journey.
That's the journey. And I think that messy middle of achieving the next point of growth is what this is all about.
Yeah, and I think there's something to the reaction, right, of saying that a lot of the conversations focus in maybe on the end state or maybe the problem statement of where you are today, but it's really about that journey and architecting that path forward that we really wanted to have ground the conversations that we were shaping. So an ascent, not a peak. It's about a journey along the way, and it's about different paths that people take along that way. So maybe playing off that, because obviously I see the synergy between the Ascent and Mountain Branch.
Yep.
I also know, obviously personally for you, Mountain Branch means something very special. So maybe tell a little bit about that.
Yeah. So again, Mountain Branch is the company that we have together. We started this roughly 6 months ago, really to help companies scale their go-to-market engines, leveraging Agentic AI, and the power of ecosystems. And so Rich and I have a common passion around those topics. We spent years in operator roles, spent some years in companies together, and really, first, we're a good fit. Like, we like each other. Rich is a good person. He knows me. We certainly have our
You're
differences.
a good person too. I can validate that.
And we just enjoy working with each other. So we started this journey on Mountain Branch. The name has some shared meaning.
Yeah, break that down.
So yeah, I was born and grew up in Maine. Spent an early part of my childhood there in the shadows of a mountain there called Mount Katahdin. And Rich has a similar experience with Maine and Mount Katahdin. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, grew up spending time, busy parents who were working on their own careers earlier in their lives and needed someone fundamentally to care for their kids. So got shipped off to Maine every summer, which was just a joy to spend time with my grandparents, similarly in the shadow of Mount Katahdin. And there's just something special about the place that, again, I think has a synergy for the work that we're doing. You think about this, it's an iconic place. It's in the center of what is now a protected wilderness. It's described as the 100-mile wilderness. And what's incredible about it is the last 10-day stretch for those who are completing the Appalachian Trail. And if you think about that journey, they're starting in Georgia, they're going many months to very north central Maine, and they have to finish not just with an endpoint, but literally with a climb, with an ascent. And so this idea that we have together of being able to represent our journeys that brought us to where we are in the conversation today, but also a sense of, this transformation, the work that you have to do and the path that you choose to do it is particularly meaningful. And for us, obviously professionally, that really grounds a lot of the conversations that we have.
Yeah, 100%. So you think about the mountain as part of the name as that growth, that ascent, that journey, and then the branch is specific to the different paths.
That's it.
And then again, both Rich and I kind of share common backgrounds, but we took very different paths in career and life. And I think all of you out there, have that same difference in journeys, career paths, etc. And so there's multiple ways to get to that growth, and want to explore those, right? And so that's part of the name.
I love it. So you'll see us play off that theme from time to time. There are multiple, literally, trails that lead you to the top. You can take the traditional hunt or the able trail. At the top, the most exciting part is those that are finishing their ascent have to cross literally a section called the knife's edge, where it's precipitous, falls on either side of it to complete that incredible journey. So kind of, set some context. It's a high bar for the work that we're doing today. Now let's kind of flip gears and put that in the context of the work that we're doing together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. So we talked about the background, the origin story of Mountain Branch. But what the company does is fundamentally around go-to-market growth systems. And so we really see a turning point in the market where traditional go-to-market systems, both people, process, and technology, have been built for a world that no longer exists.
Yeah, total disruption.
Total disruption that's happening in the market. And so, you have systems that are really people-oriented, process-oriented, brittle, and for those of you in go-to-market functions know this, nothing is ever perfect.
No.
You have design points that are never fully met. You have value propositions that you're sold by vendors that you never truly achieve. And because of the emergence of Agentics and generative AI, we view very passionately that there's an opportunity to do something radically different.
Completely agree.
And so the fundamental opportunity we have as a company is help other enterprises and businesses achieve using agentic AI, using the power of ecosystems, which again is something that we're passionate about. Rich in particular has a passion there, given his many years in the seat of a channel chief and operating the channel organization.
Yeah.
So perhaps maybe you talk about that for a minute.
Well, I think even just double-clicking on a few of the words there for the audience, and hopefully you're still with us in the journey here, but agentic, ecosystem, two of these words I think over the course of the last few years have taken on the kind of move beyond buzzworthy words to truly differentiating how large enterprises and companies, not just those that are selling to end user customers, but especially in the space of selling outcomes to peer businesses, are thinking very differently. I think we talk a lot about how this disruption has been a long time coming. We've lived through a few transformations in the market. Think of the early .com period leading to the build out of the hyperscale cloud infrastructures. But what we're experiencing now is very different than, I think you could see those as infrastructure transformations that were driving changes in the market. There's something about this moment now with the rise of AI, of agentics, of generative AI that is truly changing the organizational transformation at the same time that the underlying technology that's disrupting that is itself accelerating as well. And so for us in this space, we see it acutely within the go-to-market engines of most of these companies that were built for a different world. Think about that transition from the mainframe era of the 70s, the 80s, and the introduction of personal computing and the rise of the internet. That kind of fundamental change is taking place right now in the market. And fundamentally, those companies and their back office systems, their ways of operating, the ways of organizing, have not really been built to accommodate where both the opportunity and the challenges within their system. So we'll spend some time talking about what does it mean for ecosystems in this space, literally no longer the traditional fulfillment channels of the past, but multiple partners coming together to deliver on transformational outcomes for a customer. But those partners having many other partners on the other side of them, many other solutions on the other side of this. So we talk a lot about this notion of the many-to-many ecosystem. And all of this happening in the context of that transition from machine learning, that ChatGPT moment we all experienced a couple years ago, which feels like that crossing of the Rubicon of the promise of artificial intelligence that we've worked through for some of us for many years, to landing on AI, generative AI, and agentic. So maybe just to ground folks a little bit, because you've been in the space for a long time, you've been in the data and ML space. How are you seeing, maybe just taking that time frame of the last decade, that kind of transition?
Yeah, awesome. And again, one of the things we don't want this podcast to be is sort of like a LinkedIn du jour of buzzwords. So we will sort of take time to break things down. And again, we're happy to engage, by the way, outside of the podcast. So send DMs, send messages.
Happy to connect.
Happy to connect. But I think, we overuse the word transformation. That's one of those kind of buzzwords that, hey, we're going through a transformation. And literally there's a transformation every single year in a lot of companies, and we're constantly going through transformations, or we're transforming this or that. I think we overuse that and undervalue that word. And I think what we're actually going through with AI and the emergence of it is more akin to a revolution, like the industrial
I think you're
revolution.
Right.
And so I think what you mentioned around, the emergence of the internet, cloud computing, everything we've been through in the industry for the past, 25, 30 years, is nothing compared to what we're going to achieve with AI.
In terms of both size and speed.
Size, speed, and value. And we'll talk about this.
Value.
And so I think that's going to be an interesting topic that we'll explore. Just in terms of what we're seeing around AI. So AI isn't new. Like it's been around for 60 years. And it has slowly tried to achieve enterprise relevance. And there's been several waves of AI adoption over the years, with machine learning, automated machine learning, predictive AI was really kind of the starting point. And it was always this notion of, you mentioned crossing the Rubicon moment. At a company that I was with, we described it as the elephant crossing the bridge moment. So when the Brooklyn Bridge was first built, one of the largest bridges in the world at the time, no one trusted it. Like no one really wanted to go over that bridge because they thought it would fall down. So P.T. Barnum actually walked Jumbo the elephant over the bridge to prove to people that the bridge was sturdy. And so AI almost needed that elephant crossing the bridge moment to drive widespread adoption. And that was really with ChatGPT back in the 2020 timeframe. And so it's just a major step forward in people trusting AI. And again, there's work there to be done. But really kind of this widespread adoption is what has happened. Now I think there's an opportunity to take it to the next level.
It changed the imagination of what was possible. Instead of this being in the domain of data scientists and math PhDs, it kind of came to the forefront of something that we could engage with, interact, and where reasoning came to the forefront. And so no longer was it about accessing information through a traditional search-based conversation, but the ability to use natural language to access reasoning, engage with it in a different way, has kind of changed the way that enterprises are working. So within that, we see a number of key areas within, especially for our audience here in the go-to-market arena, that are going through a lot of soul searching at the moment. They're kind of inspecting both the existential threat that some of this transformation or revolution is having to them in the market. We see it particularly in the sales teams, whether it's in the traditional SDR or BDR functions. We see it in the enablement teams. We see it in the way that pipeline and forecasting are done. Especially, we're acutely aware of what the opportunity and significant challenges are within the channel teams, partner ecosystem teams there. Maybe just a few highlights of where you see both the promise and where folks need to focus today to deliver on the opportunity of that promise.
Yeah, and I think, again, our passion and vision is that all of these functions within enterprise are going to be changed going forward. And there's an opportunity to sort of fundamentally rebuild or re-architect, how companies operate from a go-to-market system standpoint and a growth engine standpoint. And so we've talked about this in blog articles, and I think it really starts with this notion that the companies that really lead the way will have this massive differentiation, right? And so we call it sort of the great divergence that will happen with the companies that are sort of AI native, AI forward, versus those that aren't. And you could see this translated into efficiency. Is probably the first metric that everybody will kind of recognize. massively reduce cost of customer acquisition or CAC, CAC, where, and again, these are proven results. We can actually drive a 50% improvement in cost of customer acquisition just through automation and leveraging AI. Now extend that throughout the rest of the go-to-market functions, and all of a sudden you get a much higher potential revenue per employee than is traditionally ever been possible in the past.
So where is it today, like for a traditional enterprise versus where that promise of the AI native company is?
So it obviously depends on the industry. We're mostly focused on tech. So take a typical large tech company that maybe has $250,000, $300,000, maybe $400,000 per employee in revenue.
ARR.
AR,
Yep.
Typically. So annual recurring revenue. So again, think like 300 to 400K in AR
That sounds about
per
right.
employee.
Yeah.
And again, a company that kind of has that is maybe getting a valuation multiple of maybe 3 or 4x.
And when you say valuation multiple, you mean for the value of the company
Value
itself.
of the company. So think share price.
Yeah.
So if you take revenue per share, you basically multiply that by 4, and you can typically get a range of a share price.
Yeah,
That's
so that
pretty typical.
$100 million company is 300 to 400 million.
Maybe 5, maybe 6, depending on how efficient they are. Now, a company that is AI native, we've seen results of like 1.1, 1.2 million per employee.
It's incredible.
Which is incredible. So you're able to achieve those same revenue results with much less people resources, which drives a much higher multiple.
Yeah.
And so we see the potential for AI-driven companies to get to a 12 to 16x valuation multiple just through that efficiency that Wall Street and financial analysts love.
Yeah, and I want to dig into this. There's so many interesting conversations to have about what does it mean for those of us that have worked in these roles in organizations for some time. What about the people alongside these agents and the rise of the agents that are performing these building tasks? And we'll talk about the difference between the builders versus the architects a little bit. But I want to go back a moment because you said something really interesting is this distinction, the great divergence that we're describing and we see in the market. Maybe just a little bit of the attributes of those that are AI native and what's their point of origin and what distinguishes them versus maybe more traditional enterprises who themselves will have to, whether disrupt, go through evolution, we'll choose the word that fits the enterprise, but maybe some of the underlying characteristics that distinguish the two.
Yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally we're going to see broadly sort of a change in the way that markets operate and market concentration.
Yeah.
So what you'll see is that the barriers for entry radically lower.
We're seeing it every day.
Every single day, particularly in our space of tech and SaaS companies, the disruption that's happening is just massive. And the reason for that is that the cost to enter a market is becoming a lot lower because of the rise of automation, because of AI agents, even code building. If you're building a SaaS application from scratch, it is radically easier to do that today than
it's
it
completely
was 15 or 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
And so the disruption that's happening is just massive. And so for established enterprises, it's really sort of this time that is the constraint, where the longer you wait, the longer that you are sort of in those brittle processes and systems and aren't, again, we overuse the word transforming, but deploying, AI and automation where you can, the more you're going to get disrupted. And again, we're seeing this all over.
Totally.
And so I think with newer entrants, newer companies, they are building AI native. And so people should recognize that. Like if you're in an established company and you're not expecting AI to disrupt you because you're safe in your job or, my company really hasn't embraced it, there's somebody out there that's going to disrupt you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you touched on a few things there that I think are helpful, where a lot of our conversations as we guide really two ends of the equation. We spend a lot of time, obviously, with new and emerging companies where that barrier to entry is as low as it's been in my lifetime. Where, think of all the conversational AI companies that have come online, all of the agentic companies that are coming online, some of the platform and distribution opportunities that are accelerating. What I think is unique in those spaces is that there is an understanding that they're building from kind of scratch, this kind of base zero construct that's giving them a great ability to accelerate fast. Whereas on the other side of the equation, we spend a lot of time in the large tech vendor environments, and many of them are struggling with not just the traditional infrastructure debt and technology debt, but it's amplified in this construct of a data debt. Think of all of, particularly for large enterprises that maybe have acquired, dozens of companies over time, bolted them together, into a back office CRM system like a Salesforce. All of that has typically been built with bubblegum and duct tape, and it's making it incredibly difficult to extract the value out of that underlying data layer. So we spend a lot of time talking not just about the data, but about the trust in that data as well.
Yeah, 100%, and all that is incredibly important. The other thing that I think we're seeing is this emergence of many-to-many data systems, and you touched on it earlier, where a lot of the again, people, processes, and enterprises that have been built over time have really functioned for internal optimization in a one-to-many construct.
Yeah.
I'm a firm, I sell to many customers, I have many partners, etc. But I think in the future, what we're going to see is this emergence of many-to-many constructs.
Yeah.
Systems, data, shared data, agents communicating with other agents to achieve results, again, that are just a massive multiplier in terms of value creation. And so I think that is fundamental to what we've envisioned for the future.
Yeah.
And then you're absolutely right. Data is fundamentally important. Understanding how to extract value from your data is perhaps even more important. And then thirdly, you mentioned the guardrails.
Yeah.
And how do you implement AI systems that are trusted, validated, where you have human in the loop? And we'll talk. We should actually talk about this.
Let's get to the human in the loop conversation, because I think this can be cold and mechanical, where all of a sudden it's like the Terminator, the rise of the agents, like coming for everyone's jobs.
Yeah, so let's disabuse people of that notion.
I agree. We see it a little bit differently. So we talk a lot, especially with organizations that are thinking about implementing, whether it's point solutions, platform, or widespread enterprise. AI, generative AI, and agentic solutions, this notion of what does it mean in terms of the organizational transformation, the role of the individual. So give me a sense of maybe the change and the transition at the same time that the technology is rapidly transforming. It's changing the way we work and the expectations, and maybe where the value is in that, showing up to the workplace and delivering value. So where do you see that?
Yeah, and again, I think we should spend some time on this, because this is important. And I think, people have a misconception that my job is under incredible threat from AI. And I think both you and I have a much more optimistic vision for the future, and so I'm an AI optimist. I think every sort of technology step change has come with naysayers and people that didn't want to embrace that change.
Yeah.
And
think of the Luddites in the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah. The perfect example, or buggy whip manufacturers.
Yeah.
And every single change that has happened with technology has resulted in massive economic growth and massive number of new jobs and wealth creation. So let's kind of make sure we're grounded on that. And I think the same thing is going to happen with AI. Now the nature of work will change. And so, let's just kind of take some examples. So when we talk about what's happening with an enterprise with like an SDR, for instance, and you have these AI SDR platforms that are out there.
Does that mean that human goes away, that SDR goes away, or does something change in the way that they interact?
Yeah.
And we talked about this notion of builders versus architects a little bit as well.
Yeah. So I think, again, that analogy holds. So this notion that people are going to become more architects in nature versus builders. And so think about what happened in the Industrial Revolution, where all of a sudden, people that were turning cranks and pulling levers and hitting hammers
there's a level
in a
of
factory,
automation.
Now you have machines doing that to a large extent. And so we're going to see the same thing that's happening in functions like an SDR, BDR, so sales development rep, business development rep, where that core kind of rote outreach, email creation, logging, cold calling, that can be really done by an AI agent, like that execution. And
It's a volume game.
It's a volume game, and so an AI agent doesn't get tired. They don't. You don't have to pay them. The time of execution is radically compressed. Cost of execution, that marginal cost of doing that work is effectively zero. And so, yes, an SDR role is going to change.
Yeah.
But it's become much more of an SDR architect, where they're designing the systems that go and execute these tasks.
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to see very similar emergence of architect roles across go-to-market functions and really across back-office functions within enterprise.
I agree. We talk a lot about this notion of the messy middle of the task, that kind of rote manual labor. Obviously, we've grown up through sales teams and organizations. How many sales calls have you been on where the team is bemoaning the amount of administrative task or Salesforce updates that they're doing, or follow-ups or QBR decks, et cetera? When all of that is automated, it turns individuals into this notion of maybe framing the conversation up front, or the problem or the opportunity, and probably more importantly, of being the analyst, the architect on the other side of it, of actually applying thought and reasoning and higher level reasoning to the outcomes that are developed through, again, some of the more rote manual tasks that can be automated. And it's changing that role. And we've talked a little bit about this notion of being deep and broad, but I think that's changing as well.
Yeah, and so we see this kind of emergence of T-shaped personas.
Yeah, kind of broad and deep.
So broad on many things, deep on like one thing.
Yep.
But from an architect perspective, relative to AI systems, we're going to see this emergence of M-shaped personas. So basically, depth of knowledge and expertise at certain points in the process, and then AI is going to take over the execution, and then there's going to be another value add for humans.
So qualifying, refining, and then analyzing.
Yeah, and so asking the question, right? So I think we've you and I have talked about this notion of like a chief question officer.
Yeah.
But whether or not you like that term, it might be corny, but that concept of you have to have humans that are really framing the question very well, understand business context, understand strategy, and then setting the AI agents to work, which are going to do that remarkably well and efficiently, and then evaluating the results. So you have to have humans that are actually making sure that AI is functioning as it should, and then making a decision from that point on. And so you're going to have this, again, sort of M-shaped persona where depth of business context, depth of data and systems, and these architect personas, and then fundamentally judgment, relationships, emotional intelligence.
That's it.
Those are things that I think humans are going to have to get really good at, and then develop that persona within their own roles. And I think it's exciting. Like, I think this is actually where humans should be spending most of the time versus rote tasks and logging in Salesforce, writing outreach messages, cold calling, writing contracts. That's another area where I think there's massive opportunity for reduced friction. We've both been in situations where you get to the end of a deal and we introduce the lawyers, and it takes 4 months to negotiate a contract.
It's that indemnity clause every time.
Yeah, and then now think about an AI agent working with another AI agent that can negotiate the contract in seconds.
Yeah.
And obviously you do that with guardrails, and then obviously you would never have an AI agent sign the contract. It would have a human review, but that point of negotiating friction effectively goes away in a sales cycle.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly powerful.
Totally agree. I'm going to wrap us back maybe to the beginning. Ask for some thoughts in terms of maybe building blocks and a call to action in a second here. But if this has been the Ascent, I think it's a healthy recognition that this continues to be a journey. We're seeing these cycles accelerate and compress in terms of where new technology, innovation, and opportunity is being brought to the market, to go-to-market organizations and large enterprises. As we think of concluding our conversation here in a moment, maybe some areas that you feel like are ripe for investigation right now, where you see organizations that are perhaps maybe not AI native, but are becoming AI fluent and adopting practices where the technology is proven and where the opportunity, will deliver a significant return on that investment. Where are you seeing those maybe 2-3 areas where businesses could start today from that call to action perspective?
Love it, and great question. And so fundamentally, there are literally thousands of use cases in any enterprise to apply AI. And so I think fundamentally for companies, where to start and what to pick first is, a challenging question. And so what we really look at is, okay, where's a low risk, high value area to start with?
Yeah.
Let's prove it. You can kind of set up an A/B test around a particular use case, use AI, use your traditional process, and see what's better. So some of those areas we've talked about this notion of like win-loss activation. So your CRM is flooded with closed-loss deals, which are never gone back to or rarely, and maybe there's a reminder in the Salesforce system for a rep to go and make a call on the contact, or maybe a contact has left and gone somewhere else, so that's like creates a call to action. That's gold, right?
Dormant
Particularly
leads.
for dormant leads, reactivation of closed loss, win backs. Again, this is an area where we have some experience where perhaps a customer was a customer of yours, they've churned, they went to somebody else, they entered in a 1-year contract. That contract is now coming up for renewal. It's opportunity for you to re-engage. A lot of times humans miss that. Now take that and have an autonomous AI agent that could do not only that outreach, but that value proposition, even throughout the negotiation, and again with human oversight and human architects. But taking a domain like that, set of customers, win-loss, win-backs, it's dormant, it's gold, and if you can achieve a higher win rate or conversion of some of those contacts and dormant accounts, massive value. So that's one area that I think we're seeing a lot of potential.
And there's literally no reason not to. These are dormant leads that sit in your Salesforce or other CRM that it creates, to your point, a really good A/B environment to say, how are we performing with our current operating model and talent versus if we deploy an agentic solution.
Now, the second one I mentioned is RevOps. And so
we spend a lot of time here.
So think about a traditional RevOps operation where it's fundamentally reporting, forecasting, helping to manage the business. And if you're a CRO, typically relying on the RevOps function to be accurate, deliver a great forecast, inspect deals, inspect deal quality, identify risks, help move deals along. And again, because those are human-driven, there's just a lot of friction in that process.
Yes, we've lived it.
We've lived it. And quite frankly, humans aren't that great at forecasting.
No, we're seeing that change.
And so now imagine an AI system that can inspect deals, raise flags, be the CRO co-pilot to really drive pipeline forecast inspection, get to much more accurate forecast, which is not based upon human judgment, but is based upon really what the fundamental data is saying and examples of past results. You can get much more accurate forecasting. You don't have to wait for cadence calls to get answers to your questions around deals. That happens in real time. The agents can constantly inspect, constantly raise red flags, constantly make suggestions for next best action on a particular deal. Massive improvement opportunity.
Completely agree. So changing your, that weekly Monday call, the forecast from one where we all show up, we've done our prep. Some of us have done it over the weekend to get ready for that call and conversation, to actually turning it, instead of an inspection and a creation of a forecast that then, moves from the CRO to the C-suite and to the board eventually, to now actually getting into, to your point, that notion of the next best action. Where is the team and the talent and the resources, typically dozens of resources sometimes that show up on these calls, could be better applied to actually driving outcomes and results? Where should they apply that talent? So to your point, this notion of deal inspection, pipeline and forecasting, I'd say in the ecosystem space, kind of the adjacent opportunities around lead share, the way that we provide, interactions between today, typically between partner sales managers and their respective functions internally, finding a way to simplify, to automate, and to bring some inspection on that process. Finding a way to look at beyond the lead sharing of actually one of the core problems that we struggled with along the way is actually looking at who is the right partner to actually deliver on the outcome together with me, the vendor, in an environment. So this notion of moving beyond the traditional, partner locator construct, or trusting my PSM or the guy that I've had beers with locally in town, which is incredibly valuable. But maybe we could identify who's the right partner, who's actually secured and delivered on the right outcome repeatedly within the solution set and area that you're in. So again, multiple kind of opportunities along the way.
Yeah, and I think that whole ecosystem space, the partner space, I think we need to be candid that companies have not treated their partners very well over the years. Again, this is a space that Rich and I have both lived in. And so the investments in systems, processes, and people typically are overweighted to the direct sales teams. And, the partner channel is kind of given a short shrift. And then, always the CRO is the partner channel really delivering the results? Is it just a fulfillment channel? Are they actually driving?
Well, they're answering to the CFO, who's looking at that cost of customer acquisition, looking at the cost of the investment in that additional route to market, trying to set in fiscal year goals for, at times, particularly relationships with large strategic partners that can take 12, 18 months to deliver on their full promise. So what if we could shorten and compress that?
What if we could shorten that? And by the way, how you train and enable your partners can radically change.
Yeah.
And so this is an area where I think it's a good starting point. Again, there are so many, we could go on for hours, but the enablement function is really one where I think it's an easy place for companies to start because, again, there's just
describe the pain of that, particularly in the partner enablement function. What's the pain of the typical partner enablement individual today?
So I think it extends beyond partner, but you have these content management systems that have static content, pitch decks, collateral,
objection handling,
and then for training you have boot camps, classes, you have online training with your learning management system, and so typically those again are sort of built for direct sellers, and then modified or made available to partners, but typically again it's either more stale, more outdated, less functional than what you're providing with your direct sales team. So the pain has really been, from a partner standpoint, am I getting access to the best collateral that's out there, or am I kind of getting the stuff that was kind of approved and modified for partners? So that's always a pain point. I think the pain point on the vendor is that it's expensive. So to go and train a partner, how do I scale that? So I can run a boot camp in person that's pretty high fidelity, pretty high value, but now I need to bring in a system engineer or a technical pre-sales person.
And you're only touching a small number of resources, typically at your largest partners, and not getting the reach that's promised through an ecosystem.
100%. So you have this 80-20 rule where the 20% of your top partners are getting 80% of the resources, etc. And so with AI and the systems that we're talking about, we have the ability now to kind of completely change that game. Where now, instead of having these static points of collateral, boot camps, online training, how about an active AI agent that is your SE that's sitting beside a partner that's context aware, that's real time, that can be active with you as you're going through a sales cycle or onboarding with a new vendor or driving a customer success process. So it becomes much more relevant and high value. So just think about, your partner, you're in the middle of a deal, you need pricing. What are you going to do? Maybe you're going to call, try to reach your partner manager. You can't get in touch. Maybe you're trying to navigate to an account executive on the account. Maybe you're trying to call your distributor that you're hanging off of, and it's very manual. Now you have the ability to actually have an AI agent do the CPQ process end to end, do that configure, price, and quote, and deliver your value proposition around it and develop a business case around it. Oh, and build you out the deck that's the full proposal. That's vendor specific, maybe multi-vendor specific. If it's a multi-vendor deal.
Let me touch on that, because I actually think that to bring it home, this notion of, like, to put it in a day in the life. If I'm at a large technology vendor, if I'm in an IBM or a Dell Technologies, HPE, and a NetApp or others, I'm typically, through my partner ecosystem, working with or selling through strategic distribution. So maybe there's like a TD Synnex or an Arrow in that equation. And then I'm working with, a host of solution providers or SIs on the other side of that. And maybe it's an Ahead, a Presidio, a WWT, et cetera. For that rep who's sitting in the seat at a CDW that may have 176 other vendors on their line card, to be able to create context that's differentiated and accurate and brings the CDW unique point of view and value, combined with the IBM, and maybe there's 2 or 3 other components in that solution together at that time, and translate it before I show up 15 minutes later to that call. That's the opportunity that I think we see in front of us.
Yeah, for sure. So again, there's a massive difference between what you described, what I just talked about, and the way that partners are really trained and enabled today with systems. And again, we've both lived through that pain. Easy area to start, relatively cheap, and again, massive value if you can achieve the results that we think you can.
Yeah, so wrapping it back around, easy opportunities in terms of call to action, where whether it's in the partner locator space, within the RevOps teams of doing deal inspection, we talked about lead sharing, and we certainly are talking about enablement. And I agree, both for the direct sales teams as well as this many-to-many connected ecosystem, huge opportunities. I think with that, we might leave it today, and just thank those who joined us for the journey. This is the beginning of a series that we'll continue to host, and I think we'll see us dive deeper into topics as we go forward. Love the opportunity. Certainly share your comments below. Excited to engage with you there. Certainly offline as well. Scott, maybe last thoughts?
So again, great to be on this journey with you in particular. It's been fun every single day that we've, again, been on the journey of Mountain Branch. We're hoping to share that excitement and energy with you. We will make this a bit more irreverent. We don't want this to be the typical LinkedIn pitch. So appreciate you bearing with us. Can't wait to see you again.
Excited to see you all again. Thanks for joining us on the Ascent and with Mountain Branch Consulting.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Turn it up. We don't wait, we don't wait, we don't wait, we elevate, climbing up mountains that stand in my way, from separate paths to the breakthrough moment, this is that Ascent, we own it, no shortcuts, just momentum, from the ground up, full extension, eyes forward, no decision, climb steady, that's the lesson, the Ascent, let's go.